Good morning and welcome to the second part of Arts and Information Showcase on 96 Classical KHFM Albuquerque, Santa Fe. I'm Susan Dean. This morning in the studio we have Yuji Krishnamurti, who is a traveler of sorts around the world. Good morning, Yuji.
Good morning.
I say that you're a traveler because you've lived many places and traveled around the world.
Sure, I have never lived in any place for 6 months at a stretch for the past 60 years.
How old are you now?
I'm in mid-70s, 75 I will be next July. And age is catching up. And I'm seriously thinking of settling down somewhere. And that would be far more difficult for me to choose because I don't feel at home anywhere in this world. See, there was a time when I felt and said to everybody, told everybody that I feel at home anywhere and everywhere. And I have been on radios everywhere in the world, TV, interviews. But people always ask me, you have been traveling a lot, and which country do you like most? Where would you like to live? That's the most difficult decision for me. And I often give a very frivolous answer to such questions. I have lived everywhere in the world except some Pacific and Caribbean islands, except China. For some reason, I don't know why, it has not been possible for me to go to China. I go very often to Hong Kong. I have many friends there in China. And my so-called books, the books attributed to me, have been translated into Chinese. And they've been translated into practically every language, Japanese, Chinese, Russian, and many of the European languages. And you will be surprised that I really don't know what is there in those books.
What subjects have you covered in those books, since I haven't read
it's good you haven't read the books.
You are not proud of your books?
I don't even know what is there in the books there. I just sit and talk. People come to see me from everywhere, from every walk of life. And I very often tell people that I am an illiterate. So illiterate in the sense that I know, of course, how to read and write and the arithmetic, the 3 R's. Other than that, they are all very well-read people. That does not mean that I do not know what is happening in the world. You see, I have been around the world a lot. I have lived and still continue to travel. And I maintain that traveling destroys many illusions. And strange as it may seem, it also creates new illusions.
Aha.
And one of the things that I very strongly feel is that the human nature is exactly the same, whether you are an American, Russian, or living in jungles there, in Africa or India or anywhere. Human nature is exactly the same. Maybe very slight and superficial differences. I use this simile that we all speak English. Most of us speak what is called English language. And most probably I speak with an Indian accent, you with an American accent, French people with French accent. But basically, we are all saying exactly the same thing. I'm giving a talk. I don't like to give the talk. Going back to the question of traveling, I really don't like traveling at all.
Once you arrive at your destination, are you pleased?
The first thought that enters my head is, when am I leaving this place? As a matter of fact, I have a travel agent who is a good friend of mine. He says, Yuji is always leaving places. When is he arriving? The moment I land, I telephone him, I want a ticket, I'm leaving within 2 weeks or 4 weeks.
Are you leaving because you have a busy schedule of appearances?
No, not at all, not at all. I don't have any mission in my life, and I don't have any cause to espouse. And people ask me, who are you? And I think who are you is a wrong way of putting it. Even language-wise, I don't like that. Who are you? You see, that implies that there is something there, the nature of which we really do not know. What are you? Yes, I can easily say. Many people ask me, and as a matter of fact, I was on TV this morning, NBC, She asked me the question, how do you make a living and what do you do? I said, I have no fixed abode and I have no tangible means of livelihood. And such a person you would most probably define as a vagrant or vagrant, whichever way you want to pronounce. And so I really don't like traveling. You see, so one of the reasons why I travel most of the time is I don't want anything to grow around me, you know.
Do you feel it would inhibit you in some way to have roots, perhaps, as it were, somewhere?
Not that way. People develop some sort of attachments, which I don't like, you know. Not that I have anything against it. I'm not anti-social. Many of my friends think that I'm a sociable creature, all right, but for some reason I do not want people to develop any attachments. I don't know if that is the right word, but not look to me or look up to me to get some help, you see.
But people do come to you for just that, do
not?
They not?
Hundreds, but thousands of people, for some reason, I don't know why, have visited me. I say this very often. Pass through the portals of my residences in India, in Switzerland, and here in the United States and Australia. I very often ask them the question, why do you come to see me? And so they throw a question at me, why do you allow us to come to see me, see you? And so the answer is very simple. You see, if your curiosity brings to you for whatever reason, your curiosity is either satisfied or not satisfied. You see, if your curiosity is satisfied, that's good. If curiosity is not satisfied, it's fine.
Do you find most of the people that have crossed your path to be curious? Do you think human beings are curious?
Most of the people that come to see me are curious people. They have read a lot about me. See, for some reason, most of the newspapers in India and some of the newspapers outside India also interview me, and I have been on the air. So they know something about me. And one of the reasons why I have decided to go public, if I may use that word, for years and years I avoided and didn't accept the invitations of the radio stations and the TV stations. But now I have decided that the only way I can express myself is through that medium. Most of the people that have been coming to see me are some sort of religious buffs of all shapes, sizes, and colors, if I may put it that way. But so as a matter of fact, when people telephone me, there is a very strange telephone message in my answering machine. If you are a religious buff of some sort, please don't bother to come to see me. If you have read my books, this attributed to me, the books have not done their job, so there is no point in coming to see me. So something like that. And that kind of message brought more people. So then I had to erase that and say, sorry, I don't want to see you.
In your travels, what effect has religion had on peoples that you have observed? Is it a positive effect or a negative one?
Religion? That's a dirty word for me. It is the religious thinking that has destroyed the possibility of human species to flower into something extraordinary. And it is the religious thinking that has separated the human species from the rest of the species on this planet. And not only that, religious thinking has gone one step further and made us believe that we are on this planet for nobler and grander purposes than the other species on this planet. But as a matter of fact, we are no more grander and nobler than the other species. And they did not stop there, and the religious thinkers is what I'm referring to, have placed before us the model of a perfect being. And that perfect being is based upon the model of the great spiritual teachers. I have come to realize in my own way, off and by myself, that all the great spiritual teachers of mankind conned themselves and conned us all. So then somewhere along the line, it occurred to me, maybe they conned themselves and conned everybody. And why the hell you are conning yourself? I didn't get an answer for that question. I continued to con myself. But I allowed that kind of a thing to continue for the simple reason that I was brought up on this fundamental statement that when once you have placed your confidence in and believe the teacher to be in possession of it, that finishes the demand to question their teachings and the teachers as well. So that was really the problem for me. I'm talking, I don't know why. So come on, yes. Huh?
It is sometimes said that the human species needs a crutch, something to lean on. They can't make it on their own. Do you believe that?
No, not at all. There is a tremendous intelligence there, and that intelligence cannot express itself in its pristine purity because of the stranglehold of thought that is put in there. And not only that, or all the problems of ecology have been created by the assumption that the whole thing is created for our benefit. You know, there is no way you can reverse that. I think we have arrived at a point where no matter how long you try to reverse this, you are not going to succeed. It's not that I'm singing a song of doom or gloom, but the media hype, if I may use that phrase, that the planet is in danger is just a hype. I happen to be here in the United States when this whole business, the media hype, the planet is in danger, the next day we forgot about it, you see. So I think there is no way you can reverse it. We have done harm in the sense that planet is not in danger. We are in danger because we have disturbed the natural harmony that is there. And it is the religious thinking that is responsible for separating the humans, if I may use that word, from the rest of species. And otherwise it's all one, you know, you have no separate and independent existence of your own. So it is the thought that is put in there by culture that has separated us all and created this strange kind of a feeling that we are superior to every form of life.
You just mentioned another word, culture.
Yes.
We talked about religion having its negative impact on human beings' the amazing things we can do with our brains. What about culture, traditions, things? In New Mexico, we have so many different cultures living here, each with its own way of doing things, sometimes based in religion, sometimes not.
The word tradition, which we are very fond of using, is the wrong word. You see, the tradition only means that we are not willing to change with the changing conditions. We have come to a point where whether we like it or not, we are beginning to realize that we put ourselves on the wrong track. We have almost come to a dead end. And that is why you are looking back. Somehow, you see, all those people who have a vested interest in religious thinking as a means of business, if I may be bold enough to add that, selling us a shoddy piece of goods. They are telling us that you should look back. And I tell the people who are talking of reviving something that is dead, it is dead really. A dead thing cannot touch anything living. All our problems are living problems. And going back to your word culture, culture to me does not really mean anything other than our way of life and our way of thinking. And our way of life is influenced by our way of thinking. And I maintain that we don't have anything called our own thinking, our own thoughts. And our thoughts which we have appropriated for ourselves belong to everybody.
Are you saying that when we think we have an original idea, it really isn't ours? It's already been thought of across the universe?
There is no such thing as originality. And your assumption that we are original is born out of our assumption that this is original and that we have for the first time to come out with that kind of original thought or idea or whatever you want to call it. But we are not gracious, honest, and decorous enough to admit the source. We may not even be conscious of the fact that somebody somewhere along said the same thing before. That's why I always maintain that there is nothing which I can call my own. There's not one thought which I can call my own. And we give importance to our feelings and put feelings on a higher level and think that feelings are more important than thoughts. But feeling also is a thought. Supposing there is a feeling of happiness, and then the moment you translate that as happiness, you have already captured what you call feeling within the framework of that thought, and so it is a thought. So even feelings are thoughts.
So are you saying the 90s or in the late 80s have been take care of myself? I must express my feelings, and I must get my man or my woman to express openly their feelings. Is that bunk?
It is absolute bunk because, as I said a while ago, there are no thoughts which you can call your own. There are no feelings which you can call your own. And so what is the point in telling that, you see, these are my feelings, these are my thoughts. But we are not ready to admit that they are just these quarters there, you see. And they are asserting these quarters rights. But the body, which is something extraordinary, which is a living organism, is not concerned about the dead stuff at all. All that we put in is dead, and it cannot touch anything living there. So sometimes you may very well ask the question, how come this extraordinary piece created by whatever is responsible for the creation of that wonderful piece that is sitting there, cannot handle and throw this out of the system? It's not concerned about it. It has not touched anything living there. I was telling somebody this morning, the ethical codes of conduct have not touched anything there. For centuries we have been teaching people that thou shalt not steal. Yeah? So has it touched anything there? Not at all. So now what we call the law is nothing but an extension of the same religious thinking of man. So it also says thou shalt not steal in a different way. If you steal, I'm going to put you in prison, and you have to pay the price for it. So we have outlawed murder, but murder is on the increase. I'm not very pessimistic, and I'm not presenting a pessimistic picture. I'm trying to focus and spotlight what actually is the situation we find ourselves in.
We're visiting this morning with Yuji Krishnamurti on 96 Classical KHFM, talking about all sorts of things. What can we change?
Why are you interested in changing anything at all? You can change your way of thinking, and you can change your ideas. You can change the external expressions, your dress. You see, I have to put on the Western clothes because it is more comfortable to put on Western clothes here. I don't feel so comfortable in India, so I put on Indian clothes. That's all. And you can go to a beautician and then or a plastic surgeon and ask him to change the shape of your nose because a particular shape of the nose is fashionable, you see. So if all of us were to have the same kind of a nose, it would be a horrible thing to find that every one of us has the same shape of a face, the same color of eyes, and everybody is teaching us how you should dress yourself, what kind of a food you should eat, and how you should use this, that, and the other, is what kind of food you should eat, and it's going on and on and on and on. They all thrive on the gullibility and credulity of the people.
The change I meant was earlier we were talking about tradition and culture, and that tradition looks backward because we're afraid of making change. If we want to make changes, how do we find the inspiration to do so?
Anything you do to bring about a change is bound to fail because it failed us in the past. And many people who talk of reviving the great traditions in India, many of the people who want to go back to Christianity, they are kidding themselves and kidding us all. And we are the result of the past, you know. And people talk of the present and talk of the future. What is there is only the past. And it is the past that has created us all. And if you say, for example, this is the present moment, this is now, this is here and now, it is the past that tells us that this is the present. And there is no such thing as the present at all. And even the future that we are interested in creating is nothing but a modified continuity of the past. We live in hope. One day, somehow, through the use of the same instrument that created the past, we'll create a different kind of a future. There isn't any chance that we are going to have a better future than in the past. Maybe a modified continuity of the same.
Do you find, since you are how old now?
75.
Since you are 75 and you have you been changing all these years? Have you found...
The body does not ask that question at all. If somebody is supposing, I ask him the question, how old are you? He says 40. What does it mean? How can you experience the age, 40 or 50 or 60 or 70, as the case may be? Then he will logically explain that his sight is failing, that he's not able to do the same thing that he did 10, 30 years ago, that he's hard of hearing. He's giving all kinds of explanations to explain that he's 40 years old, 50 years old. The age does not mean a thing to the body. It has no way of experiencing the age at all.
So it is our minds and our spirits. Is that a word you like, the spirit?
What I have found after searching for the spirit, the self, the mind, and the whole lot of those things, and is that there is no self to realize, that there is nothing there to be transformed, there is nothing there to be changed. What hit me most was there is nothing there to be free from at all. You see, what we are trying to do all the time is to free ourselves from this, that, and the other. But we never question the movement that is trying to free itself from 100 different things that we are trying to free ourselves from. So when you suddenly hits that there is nothing there to be free from, that hits you like a ton of rocks, and then that changes the whole thing for you, in the sense that you will not invent a new language, that you create a new kind of a philosophy, new religion, the new age movement. It is too ridiculous to talk of new age.
You just had the most awful expression come across your face when you said new age movement. What do you mean by that?
I don't know what exactly they mean when there is no such thing as new at all. The moment you say that it is new, it is the old that tells you that it is new. And this thing that has survived, the old that has survived for many millions and millions of years, has succeeded in capturing what you call new within the framework of the whole and destroyed what the new can do.
Okay.
I'm doing
But
the
the-
talking. This is supposed to be an interview.
An interview, but that's the point. Because your ideas are new to our listeners. Mine are old. See, I'm working in the past. You're in the wherever it is that you are in. Let us talk about.
You and I are exactly the same. Exactly the same. You think I am different, and I'm forced to believe that you are different. See, there is no way I can tell myself that this is me. So there is no way I can tell you that you are different from me. So the thought that I am different from others never enters my head.
That's a very interesting concept. That would alleviate a lot of problems in the world right there if you never think you're better, worse, or you're just on an equal plane with people.
When people call me an enlightened man, God man, a guru, non-guru, unguru, they have to put some kind of a label on me. Otherwise, they have no way of trying to capture what I am trying to say. That is their difficulty. And the easiest way for them is to put a label on me or put me in some cage and satisfy themselves. Or say that he's a cynic, that he's a nihilist, that he's this, that, and the other. Because that's a very comfortable thing for them to comfort themselves and believe that, you see, he's a cynic. But actually, you see, a cynic is one whose feet are very firmly fixed on this ground. He's a realist. I am not complimenting myself. I don't go around telling the world that I am not a cynic, that I'm a realist. And what has happened to me is to emphasize this, not emphasize, put me where I actually belong, you see. And you are just an ordinary man. And why the hell have you been trying to be something different? The whole cultural input that you should be different, that you must be different, that you should be this, that you must be that, that you must be something completely different from what you see you have been all your lives. So that irritated me most, you see. So there was no way I could find out anything about myself. So when people throw this question at me, pose this question to yourself and find out who you are. You know, what the hell do you mean I know who I am, and I am what I am told I am. You see.
Have you always known this, or did this come to you over some thought and thinking?
Yeah, I have said this very often, and it is very necessary for me to repeat this. Repetition has sometimes a charm of its own. And it's not that I'm complimenting myself. You see, one thing that irritated me most when I lived with all these religious people, with my family, I asked this question, you see, what is it that you want? Everything I want is what they wanted me to want, you know, everything I wanted. Everything I thought was what they wanted me to think. So I want something different. I want to think something different. And then suddenly it struck that there is no want which you can call your own. So even this, that you want something others want you to want, is different, is a want. So I had no way of resolving this problem, you see. So how it dawned on me that you just forget it. There is no way that you can understand anything through this instrument which you have been using all your life. It's good. That's a very powerful instrument. The intellect is a very powerful instrument. You are all the time sharpening that instrument, and that has not helped you to understand anything. Why the hell you are looking for another kind of an instrument? Another kind of an instrument that they place before me, intuition, this, that, and the other, you see. Positive thinking, this, that, and the other. But when once it hits you that there is no way you can want anything other than what they wanted me to want, that there are no thoughts and no feelings and no experiences which you can call your own, you are just a very ordinary man. And that very ordinary man comes into a very extraordinary situation. That's not a carrot that I'm placing before you, but whatever that is there begins to express itself in a very, very extraordinary way.
Have you ever felt that you could communicate with spirits or lives that came before, thoughts, great thoughts? Did you ever feel free thinking, what shall I say, intuitive communication with them?
I rejected them all, you see, all, and block, total, because I didn't find, the question of reincarnation is an integral part of the Indian thinking. You know, you are made to believe that you are the result of your past. I lived in an atmosphere where everybody literally believed that there is such thing as reincarnation. And I don't want to use a derogatory expression. These old women in tennis shoes, when they met for the first time, you know, I am UG, what is yours? Instead of telling their name, in a very strange way, they said, I was Queen Victoria in my previous life, what were you? And that was the first thing that hit me so hard, that how people can believe in this thing called reincarnation. And I questioned from then on the whole concept of reincarnation. So before you answer this question to yourself or get an answer from anybody, there is any such thing as reincarnation, the one and the only question you have to ask yourself is, what is there that will reincarnate? You will
What
find
is there
that
to
nothing there.
What is there to reincarnate?
There is nothing there now. You have to find out what is there now that will reincarnate.
We're visiting this morning with Yuji Krishnamurti from India and world traveler, thinker. See, I'm trying to do the same thing, is put you in a nice pigeonhole so everyone will know exactly who you are, which I'm going to stop doing after this morning. Tell us, our listeners, in the short time we have left, Yuji, if there were one book you would recommend they read, which would it be?
Mine or others? I don't have
One
any
of
books
yours?
which I can call my own. And there is a book, I'm not plugging in for my own books. I don't, as I said.
But
really,
you may, I give you permission.
There is a book called The Mystique of Enlightenment. Mystique, they use that word. The word mystique, you know, means the aroma that is there around that word enlightenment. And there I described what actually happened to me when this hit me, that there is no self to realize, that there is no enlightenment at all. So when once that hits you, it's like an earthquake. I have to give this a simile. I often repeat that simile. And there I described what actually happened to me when this hit me, that there is no self to realize, that there is no enlightenment at all. So when once that hits you, it's like an earthquake. I have to give this a simile. I often repeat that simile. So everything that is there is destroyed. So what you are left with is something you will never know. So when once you, out of your enthusiasm to communicate something, that there is no spiritual content in this at all, whatever happened to me has happened, and it's the pure and simple physical and physiological functioning of this body. There's nothing there. And so then people who read those books simulate them and believe that they are getting somewhere there. Although I emphasize that many of these earth tremors, which you take for indicating that there is going to be an earthquake, nothing to do with the earthquake. When there is, let me stick to this simile of earthquake. When it hits you, everything is destroyed. And because earthquake is a very essential thing on this planet, it is not very comforting for us to believe that it is very necessary, because it helps the planet to realign itself. The physical body is all the time controlled by thought. When once the thought cannot control, so the whole thing changes, and then it begins to function in a very natural way.
What other book, a book not written by you, would you recommend?
I haven't read any book since 1953. So let me confess that I don't think any teacher, spiritual or secular, helped me to understand anything. I did philosophy, I did psychology in the university when I was young and foolish, you see. But I don't think even the spiritual teachers helped me to understand anything. So I haven't read a book. This was 50 years ago, almost 50 years ago.
We've been visiting this morning with U.G. Krishnamurti on 96 Classical KHFM Albuquerque, Santa Fe. Thank you for sharing with us this morning.
Thank you. Bye-bye.